Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let YouTube have a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never popped into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And today we have a little bit of outside content with a upload I did this afternoon of a trip that I did in September, a trip that I do every year, and a trip that gets more magnificent in its planning and in its manifestation. And I'm grateful for the lessons because without the lessons, I wouldn't be creating all of this. I wouldn't be sitting here right now, right? With the lessons that I have right now, it kind of gives me the courage to move forward, gives me the courage to show up on some of these important subjects, but not always popular subjects. I like to keep things light. I like to keep things fun and interesting. But we delve and we can see that no worse for wear. And in getting that heaviness out of our systems, we can actually find a little bit of, well, exactly that, moving forward, movement forward. And I see it in the evidence of my own life. And I show up here every single day optimistic at some point, right? Doesn't necessarily have to be in this moment, right? Because, well, I have my whole life, don't I? And I think I've just really, in the truth of it, just starting my life right now. I've gone through so many changes, but those changes have been ongoing since I was this big. And I understand it's in the repetitiveness, it's in the patterning that we build this resilience and this resistance to things that we find difficult. And I can tell you, right? I went to 11 elementary schools. Change is not fun, but I didn't really have a choice because I was a child and my guardians were the ones who were making those decisions, right? I was only along for the ride, and that's the truth. Okay, you guys, so it's Wednesday and we are 3 days into this word forgiveness that I've been biting on since I started this series of 54 words. And I've been just hungry to catch this word. And we caught it, yes, or we caught it on Monday, and I jumped into it right away and I spewed my thing. Today, in the few projects that I had to do around the house, I was trying to take it easy today. I woke up with a cold, took a COVID test. It's not a COVID. I still haven't gotten the COVID yet. I'm grateful for that, but I'm catching these other ones. And if I can catch these other ones, right, there is the same, equal, if not more, chance of catching the COVID. So I've got to pay a little bit more attention to, right, protecting myself this winter. I did get a booster shot and I did get a flu shot. It's a week ago or something, right? So maybe there was a little bit of residue, and like when they give you the cow pox so you don't get chicken pox when you're a kid, maybe they give you a little bit of the flu, and that's why I felt a little bit run down. But today I was going to go and visit my sister, but my sister cannot be around sick people. In all truth, my sister almost passed away twice this year, and she's really got to take care of ourselves. And each one of us, I can't make those choices for her, and she's stubborn. She doesn't listen to anybody, and she's going to do what she wants to do. But that doesn't stop me from putting my 2 cents in, because I understand that somebody's going to get it or they're not going to get it. And it's as simple as that. So it doesn't hurt for me just to spew my thing, just on the off chance that something might sink in. Okay, you guys, in this topic of forgiveness, right? I was chomping on it. I really wanted to tell this story about my mother passing away, and that strange, miraculous, shouldn't have happened. In my heart, it just, right? That connection was not there. And the beauty of my mother's death, right? It was beautiful how it sealed up an open wound that had been in me in my entire life. And then to wake up this morning, and as I'm going about, right, doing the final touches on my outdoor video that I was uploading this afternoon, in between those few little projects around the house, in between me getting sick, I was contemplating what kind of perspective would I come into my live tonight with on this subject of forgiveness. And I really delved into it. I actually delved into myself, looked at my dealings with forgiveness in my own life, outside of this experience that I had with my mother when she passed away. And I have to be honest in everything that I bring to the table. And we did get this word, forgiveness. And because I understand that, some of the inside follows the content, some of the outside follows the content, that, it's not a matter of that favoritism and taking sides, because I'm right in the middle. And, all parts of me need lessons, but specific to the lesson, what parts of me need it, I'm not quite sure. But I did recognize something in my patterning that's been with me my entire life, and something I never took into consideration when I was biting on the bit to get this word forgiveness, was my interaction with the word forgiveness. In all actuality, I'd have to say it's been nil. It has been zero. I actually delved in deep to see where I could drum up this idea and this understanding in a way that it had impacted my life, and that I possibly had learned a lesson. And I came up with nothing, right? But I didn't come up with nothing, because, right? Just the fact that I am not a forgiver, that's something to take a look at. That's something to take a look at, especially when I saw and experienced, I felt how that word forgiveness impact my very soul when I had that experience with my mother. I never gave it another thought, right? But in comparison now, so what I'm doing is I'm putting myself into some experiences in my life where a little bit of possibly apologies were due and never given, or just this idea of, me walking away, because that's what I usually did. I have no idea how I got so enmeshed in this trauma bonding within my own family that I didn't even recognize the negativity and how it had impacted my life, and how I accepted and chose my role within that family as scapegoat. And even in this moment, I look back at that role I played, and I don't come up with forgiveness, even though I've left it all in the past. And that's the key thing. I just left it there. I do a lot of looking at the past. I keep looking at those experiences that I had, knowing, right, my purpose comes from my pain. And because I'm delving into emotions, right, I have to be the test subject on that. I have to be the experience. I have to be the experiment. And I have to be the one that's going to step first, because nobody's going to step for me. And because somebody else is going to have a different experience, it's not going to be the same lesson for me, right? It's not going to be, right. This is why we take lessons from people who are similar to us. It's because we want people to understand us, and who better to understand us than people who might have had similar experiences, right? I don't want to hear about trauma from somebody who's never experienced trauma themselves, right? Or hasn't really truly experienced the impact of trauma on themselves, or maybe somebody close to them, right? Maybe and probably, right? Good chance that you are blinded to this, right? It just seems kind of strange that somebody who feels intent so much. I've always felt the intent. I've always been a seer. I've always been a truth teller. It's gotten me into some big doo-doos sometimes with the people that I care about, because they don't understand, and they sometimes take it in offense. They take it as somebody coming at them and picking at their faults and their weaknesses. And when I see intent, you know maybe it's a form of forgiveness, right? But for me, I just walk away, right? I've been taught, I've been programmed my entire life to turn the other cheek. I'm not a big believer in turning the other cheek, and that's the problem being a truth teller, right? That's the problem with being a seer, because you can see what's not right. You can see the intent. You can see where you're making mistakes, I'm making the mistakes, and you can easily see sometimes the path in how to overcome that. And it just seems so strange for me that even delving into these subjects, that even today I'm recognizing things. And I guess that's why the words are showing up the way they're showing up, because I was excited to get that word forgiveness. I was excited to tell that story of my mother, and all that weight and all that guilt and all that shame, how it just disappeared in that moment, in that interaction that I had with somebody who hurt me very much, right? And probably as a truth teller, right? And as probably, as somebody who just, right, recognize the intent. And right. And when you feel that, when you, right, it's like getting caught with your hand in the cookie jar when somebody's just looking at you like, what are you doing, right? And I'm saying cookie jar, but it could be anything that person is doing, right? Whether they're yelling at you, punishing you, right? That you see what they're doing, and it's still confusing because you don't understand, but they see it in your face, and it infuriates them, because it's that what is that? It's insolence to them, right? It's insolence because it's not something we should be seeing. It's not something we should be understanding. It's not something we should be feeling, but we can't help it, right? We're highly sensitives. We're empathic. We are hyper vigilant. It's what we do. It's our safety. And sometimes our lives depend that we're paying attention and we're looking for those clues, right? And for me, when things got bad, when friendships fell apart, and I would much prefer a friendship to fall apart right away and recognize, rather be years or even decades into a relationship before you realize, right? Like that trauma bonding that I had with my sister. It didn't serve me, it didn't serve her, right? And right now, remember what I said? She almost passed away twice. And you would think, right, that I would be rushing to her side and comforting her and holding her up and cheering her on and doing the Cindy, right? Knowing that a little bit of positivity would do her very well, a little bit of kindness would do her very well. But that thing that I did, right? That inability to truly forgive. That was a miracle. That was grace. That experience that I had with my mother, it's not happening, right? With my sister. I'm treating it differently. I'm treating it like like I treat all those other people who have hurt me. There's just nothing. There's no forgiveness, there's no anger, there's no resentment. There's it's just nothing. It's just nothing. And I just walked away from that, right? So when we talk about forgiveness, I really have to take a look within my own life to see, how do I forgive, right? We all forgive differently and we all apologize differently. My parents never, ever apologized. I never heard them say, I'm sorry in my entire life. Neither of them. Neither of them. And it's not like there wasn't any times then it was not appropriate to apologize, because there were plenty of times, right? But they never did. And I don't know if they thought that it was a sign of weakness. I know in some of those networks that I float around in, right, apologizing is looked at as a sign of weakness, bowing down, right? I've never been that person. I do believe when we hurt somebody, and especially when we hurt with somebody with intent, that it's our responsibility to fix that pain, to fix that damage, because that's what it is. It's remember what I said about my mother, me and my mother having that experience, and that open wound that I had my entire life, how it instantly healed over, right? So it makes me wonder why I'm not able to do that for others, right? Right? So I delved into it a little bit differently, and I delved into it a little bit deeper, and I come to a little bit possible, right? A possibility, right? Just something I'm stewing around in my head, that it's sometimes in the understanding, right? Sometimes that's all you need, is the understanding that we're all in different stages in our evolution. And so, if somebody doesn't get it, I'm not going to beat a dead horse over the head to make them understand. So the only thing I can hope for is just to pull myself away from that, right? There are people in my lives that, could do with a little bit of forgiveness in their lives, a little bit of that kindness, of the forgiveness. But also at the same time, when you offer up that forgiveness, lots of times, right? They're just right back into your life in the same role, the same position, like nothing ever happened. And where's the lesson in that, right? And maybe there's a little part in me, right? And I'm not doing it to punish, because I don't punish. I just walk away, right? Because the understanding allows me to just let it go, knowing that I'm not going to get past that, right? And I'm not doing it to be unkind, right? But I don't see the purpose in forgiving somebody, right? My dad used to say all the time, there's no use in being sorry unless you know what you're sorry for. There's no use in saying you're sorry unless you know what you're sorry for. And lots of times we go, sorry, 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 right? Apologize, and right? And then you get stopped right in mid sentence and they'd say, what are you sorry for? And you'd just be a blank. You would just be a blank, because all you're doing is grabbing at straws to help alleviate the pain that you have in the moment, right? That, right? I'm sorry, I'm sorry. You'll say anything, you'll do anything. And it's not the way I worked, right? Being a truth teller, right? Being a seer. It was, I guess, against my grain, and I didn't want to reward something that didn't deserve an apology or forgiveness, right? And maybe that was a lesson for me today, to look at that, so that maybe tomorrow, or maybe this evening, as I'm taking in a lesson or two before I go off to bed, because I am bagged today, that I can look at this word forgiveness, that, like I said, I was so excited to get this word forgiveness. And these words, right, when I delve into them, they pull on those strings, right? Those strings of emotions. They trigger me sometimes, right? Sometimes they trigger me. But at the same time, they give me that understanding. And just like, my understanding that there's no point in forgiving somebody, because, right, they don't even understand that they've done something to hurt you or hurt somebody else, or to make a situation worse, right? Or they did something with intent specifically to hurt hurt someone, right? That I'm not going to reward that. But for my own well-being, I have to be able to let it go. And for me to be able to let it go, it is in that understanding that, we are all in evolution. But the thing is, we're not Neanderthals anymore, right? We're not Neanderthals, and we're moving so fast, right? We're all turning into a bunch of computer brains. But if we don't get down pat some of these um, understandings in our emotions, that maybe it might be too much, and we might not be able to handle the speed at which we go, because, right, we're not going to be able to pick up the lessons, because by the time we take in one lesson, we're already on to the next one, and we haven't even had a chance to absorb it, right? And so in this time where it is slow, that maybe we can delve in a little bit deeper, that we can digest a little bit more, right? That maybe we can slow down a little bit, right? Maybe we can find a little bit of forgiveness in ourselves, right? For lacking in the lessons, or even lacking in our own evolution, right? Lacking in our own evolution. And you could be way up there, but it could be the one lesson. It could be the one lesson that just breaks everything open. But like you, right? It just coming to your attention in this moment, or maybe right tomorrow, or through another conversation, or a little bit of serendipity, and you go, oh my goodness, Cindy was just talking about this the other day, right? And then you'll get it, and then maybe you'll delve in a little bit deeper, right? And then sometimes, right, we'll have to take a look at ourselves, right? And we got to start with that forgiveness for ourselves. Definitely. I've made some big, huge mistakes in my determination to make my own decisions, because I couldn't trust the people who were making the decisions for me, right? There was a lot of, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. But it wasn't genuine, because it was only to get out of that moment of pain. And then I was going to be right back at it, right? And for me to forgive somebody who negatively impacted my life for my entire life, and I'm just supposed to say, you're forgiven, like it's going to make a difference, because that person doesn't even realize that they've done anything wrong, right? They didn't get the lesson. They just they just don't get it. They'll actually even try to, right? Make it your problem. So I think to myself, what's the point? And sometimes all we can do is just separate ourselves from it. I've done it many times. I've done it with narcissistic managers and bosses who have just, right, treated me like, right, and that's okay. I can move along. I got a paycheck. But when you go for the jugular, we're done. We're done. And I might still be sticking around for a while until I can find a place to settle in. But you'll get nothing else from me. We're just done. And you may apologize a couple of weeks later, but I've already made that decision that we're done, because you've shown me in that interaction where you're at in your stage of evolution, and you've done that this moment. What's going to stop you from doing it in the next? Right? Right? It's like well, I could say a husband, we'll just use this as an example, right? A husband who beats his wife and then says, oh, sorry, 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 I never meant to do that. I love you so much. Give me another chance. Right? No. Right? You've shown your colors. You've shown what you're capable of. You've shown me what's not healed. You've shown me where you're at in your stage of evolution. And that would be, I'm not going to say silly of me to stick around, but that would be detrimental. In any case, it would be totally detrimental. And it would also reflect that I'm not taking in the lessons along the way if I'm going to sit in it. I've had those lessons in codependency. I've had those lessons in narcissism. I've had those lessons in post traumatic stress disorder and complex post traumatic stress disorder, abuse, like, right? And it's not all completely down packed, and those lessons are going to still come at me, but I know enough to understand. And now that understanding becomes my responsibility because I can see it now, right? Right? I can see it now. So now that's on my plate, in my choices, whether to forgive and stay. I was going to say forgive and go, but right now I'm going to say, right? Or just go, because I understand, right? That we're just not in what's the word, in a state, in the same kind of state that we can properly, right, move together, right, that we can't properly move together. Sometimes we can use those values, right? That's why we should be moving with people who have similar or the same values, right? Because even though we're so dynamic and so unique as individuals, right? We still don't rub each other properly, right? We're still in different stages of evolution, but if we can mind our P's and mind our Q's, right? Maybe some of these lessons that we had this week about if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all, right? Forgiveness is very, very important because I've had the grace of truly seeing the impact and the magic and the beauty of the healing of what forgiveness can do. But I don't think it's realistic in every moment. You know, you can't just give somebody your forgiveness because they don't understand. They're just going to take it and they're going to use it, or they're going to, right, think that forgiveness just means, the slate's wiped clean and they're right back in the picture again. And the next thing you know, right, because nature is nature, and unless they're taking in the lessons, unless they're following their values, right, that are similar or the same to yours, right, they're just gonna overstep themselves again. And then, instead of just walking away, maybe it becomes a trigger, because we know what happens when, right, these things just keep going on and on and on and on. It's like somebody snapping on somebody who just says, "Hey, how's your day going?" But because that person walked in the door, right, after this person's just had some of the worst experiences their entire life, and right, just one problem after another problem after another problem, one person getting on their nerves, another person getting on their nerves, and then you walk in the door and you say hi, and the next thing you know, they're taking you out, right? Because you said hello, and that's confusing. Now those are instances, right, that understanding does play a role, because we understand sometimes those pressures build up, right? We understand triggers because we experience them as highly sensitives and as empaths. We feel them, right? We understand triggers, right? But we only sometimes recognize them in ourselves, and we don't recognize that other people are triggered too. And when they're triggered, right, we get all surprised and defensive, and right, and take it personally. So I'm grateful, right, to be able to feel a little bit of intent, right? I'm grateful that I'm able just to walk away. I'm grateful, right, that I do understand this saying, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all, because I'm not going to stir a pot, especially when I become an experiencer or a witness to somebody who's done something and doesn't recognize, right, that you would offer a little bit of forgiveness, right? Right? No use being sorry unless you know what you're sorry for, right? And I think walking away sometimes is a bigger lesson. and it's more genuine in the truth, right? Because you can offer forgiveness, but I don't think that you could truly give it in that way, and not unless it was like one of those moments like I had with my mother in the last breaths, right? That it doesn't seem realistic, and it doesn't seem plausible. Even it doesn't make sense sometimes just to give that forgiveness away, right? Just give it away like it's popcorn to the undeserving, right? And right, they say to forgive for yourself, right? But if you're trying, right? No lying, no cheating, no stealing. If these are part of your values, either part of your things that you move in, right? Well, you won't be able to bring yourself to bring up a little bit of forgiveness, right? You can try, right? You can try. But I think in that moment sometimes, in that, right, like with what I had with my mother with the last breath, it can lead into regret, and it can lead into those beating ourselves up for missed opportunities to heal, right? I didn't have any of that. When my mother was gone, we were good. I was good. And I don't beat myself up for that relationship at all. I understand it. I understand the dynamics of that relationship to the best of my ability, but I have to realize she realized that relationship we had to the best of her ability, right? And sometimes I have to say, right, offering up forgiveness just might not be the perfect solution, right? And it might not even be plausible, right? It might only be feed for the guilt and shame, right? Guilt and shame. That's what it brings up when we're not able to be the person that we would like to be, the bigger person, right? And sometimes it's in that understanding that we have our own limiting beliefs and we have our own things that we need to work on, right? Cindy needs more lessons in forgiveness, 100%. But how would I have known that, right? Unless I got that word this week, right? That I had to delve into it a little bit deeper, and that I wasn't such a smarty pants, right? I was all excited for this word, forgiveness. I wasn't even close to being ready for 100%, but it is what it is. Okay, you guys, I think I'm going to finish my coffee and head off to bed. Grateful, back to work tomorrow, got my job to ground in, right? So for the next 4 days, all my attention, all my effort, right, goes into that job that puts the roof over my head, right? And gratefulness for that amazing little job that I have that allows me to practice my craft in shining. Grateful for that, right? Grateful for all these moments that I get to come in here and hash over some of these thoughts and these ideas and some of these lessons that I go into, right? And I'm grateful that we're our third day into forgiveness, and we're going to see what Cindy comes up with tomorrow. And I'm going to look into this topic of forgiveness a little bit better. I did believe at first when I thought about this word forgiveness. I thought, oh, my marriage falling apart, right? How me and my husband, how we were able to, separate as easily as we did and make it easy on each other and stuff, right? And I thought, oh, that's a good way to come at forgiveness. And I said, looked at it and I said, no, because I did the same thing with him. I just let him go. I just walked away from that marriage, right? And it wasn't forgiveness that I gave my husband. It wasn't forgiveness that I gave myself. But what it was understanding. It's always been that understanding, right? And maybe sometimes that's all we can hope for, right? Is that understanding, even if we understand that somebody else doesn't understand, at least in that comfort that we do, right? Hello, Nancy. How are you tonight, dear? How are you tonight? I'm just ending my live. Oh my goodness. I am bagged today. I got myself a cold. It's not COVID. I took a COVID test. It's not COVID. I got my video up. So if you get a moment, Nancy, go check out my last video from my adventure this fall. And yeah, it was an amazing trip. Um, and it was an amazing experience putting those videos together. And I'm really looking forward to even bettering how I make that reward next year, right? I've got some plans. I'm looking at a navigator, or I'm looking at, what's the other vehicle? Two really, really nice vehicles. And I can't remember what they are. I can't even remember what they are. Okay, you guys, I am bagged. I'm going to bed. Everybody, have a great night, and we'll see each other tomorrow. Take care. Thanks for popping in. Bye bye.